Welcome back to the MetaMinds podcast, where we help you master your mindset. My name's Dan, and I'm a fully qualified counsellor.
And my name's Eamon, and I am a video strategist.
And on today's episode of MetaMinds, we had Alyse Grace with us. This was a cram-packed episode, so much value in here. We really enjoyed sitting down with Alyse and learning about her podcast called Trillions, where she interviews multimillionaires and billionaires. So much about mindset in here. She had a really, really fascinating story.
Yep, crazy backstory, and definitely value-packed episode. There's so much. If you're trying to do anything in life, start a business or anything, there's a lot on mindset that's really gonna. Yeah, and we literally we go from topic to topic and just smash out so many different things. So guys, this is one of the most action-packed episodes in a while. So without further ado, jump into it.
And enjoy. Before we do jump into it, we are also Audible affiliates. So there will be a link in the description below to sign up on Audible. You can get a free book on us, and there are multiple Audible originals as well. So it helps us out and it helps you guys actually get a free book.
And finally, if you want to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, it really, really helps us with ranking. We want to get our message out there. So if you get any sort of value out of it, please jump in, take a couple of seconds to do that. Just really appreciate it. Enjoy the episode, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us, Alyse. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about your podcast Trillions, where you interview millionaires and billionaires. And you also told us just before that you're writing a book at the moment.
Yeah.
So I guess we'd just love to know about that journey to getting into the space with millionaires and billionaires. How did that happen? How did you get to that position?
Yeah, so I have an elite sporting background. So I started playing soccer when I was quite young and was really good, and then transitioned into running and triathlon. Then I did a full Ironman. And then after that, I really wanted to transfer my high motivation and determination skills from sport into business. So I got a business mentor, and he was a multimillionaire. His name's Philip DeBella. He was one of my first mentors. And I just loved networking with him and learning about his business. And from there, I met other multimillionaires. And I just thought I was having these private conversations with these incredible business people. And I wanted to share those conversations. So I thought I'd start the podcast. Yeah.
And what was the response when you told these people that you wanted to start the podcast? Were people open to jumping on?
Yeah. Actually, in the beginning, I wanted to do a podcast where I interviewed people who had a love for supercars like me and feature their cars. But some entrepreneurs are a bit funny about, they think it's a bit wanky to include the cars. So I decided against that. But most of them are pretty keen to get on and get some publicity and have a conversation, and as long as it's benefiting the audience, and they're quite open to that, which is really cool. Yeah.
And when you have these people on, they're obviously quite high caliber people. They've done so much to get to this position.
Yeah.
What is the focus of the podcast? What are you trying to kind of unearth from talking to these people?
Yeah, so I have 4 specific things that I want to talk about on each podcast, and those are business, money or business, finance, investing, and legacy. So I really love talking to them about their business journey or entrepreneurship journey, how they got to where they are, the problems or the journey along the way, what the ups and the downs, share things about lessons that they've learned and challenges rather than just talk about all the highs. And then we also talk about their investment strategy. I think that's really important to talk about money. We don't, I didn't grow up with a family who were really comfortable talking about money or how much was in the accounts and things like that. So I think it's really important that we have those conversations today, especially with these types of people who are making a lot of money by serving a lot of people. So yeah, we talk about their investment strategies, whether it be property or stocks. Often it's property, but I'm yet to find some people who are really interested in stock and trading. And then talking about legacy, I'm really interested in why people do what they do and what they want to leave after they're gone. It's obvious to me that some people don't really think about that. And I think it's important to have a legacy and to want to pass that on to your children and grandchildren. And of course, then the other thing was business, investing, finance. Yeah, I've forgotten, but you get the gist. I just like talking about money and numbers and the business and stuff and all of that kind of juicy content that a lot of people don't talk about.
Yeah.
I think it's really important that you mention the investing part of it, because a lot of people that build wealth, especially a large amount of wealth, there is a huge investing element to it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that, a lot of the ads you see, for example, for marketers or whatever, they have this get rich quick kind of thing. And a lot of people are trying to get onto that train, but it's building wealth is a very long game, and investing is a huge part of it. You don't just have all this money and then you just stay rich forever. It's you have to invest in different places, have multiple streams of income. And you're right, a lot of people don't. It's not really commonly that talked about. So I think it's really important that you're doing that. But the other similarity that I see to our podcast is it's like, it's really interesting doing this. Like, obviously we're providing value to other people, but it's like we kind of get to hack our way to success by interviewing these people as well. So it's just really interesting to see, like, you know, the gems of information that people have picked up. So any like huge gems that kind of come to mind that you're like, oh, that was one that like you implemented into your life straight away or something?
Yeah. One that really stands out actually is from Peter Hull. So he's a CEO of Fitstop Australia. And he's only been doing the business for, I think, 2 or 3 years. So he's a young CEO. He's in his 30s. And I asked him about imposter syndrome, you know, when a founder CEO feels like they don't deserve their level of success, or they don't feel like they've earned it enough, even though they have, especially in his case. So I asked him how he combats that, how he feels successful with what he's doing each day. And he keeps a physical journal. You know, if he's interviewing on a podcast like today, he'll take a photo or a selfie, just photos of each opportunity that he gets. Or when he was pitching for investing into Fitstop, he took photos with certain incredible high-level people that he was inviting in to invest in his company that he wouldn't have otherwise got an opportunity to meet, took photos with them, and he prints them and he puts them in the book, and maybe writes in the book different opportunities that he's had. And then if he's ever feeling a bit down or like he's not helping enough people, he looks back through his book at his achievements, and then he can see all these things, like a book full of photos, and that reminds him of what he's doing and why and how far he's come.
Love it. I think gratitude is a huge thing, again, that, you know, a lot of people don't think to come and implement, but I've started to do journaling, and obviously gratitude as well. It's like, if you're really grateful for the very small things, that kind of, and helps punch that imposter syndrome in the face that we all face in this generation of like technology as well.
Yeah.
So the other thing you mentioned is legacy. Do you have a particular legacy that you have already? Is it fully formed, Jed?
For me?
Yeah.
I probably not. No, I think I'm quite young. I want to live to 111, so I've got
that very specific.
There you
yeah,
go.
I think that's a cool age. You know, I get to live to. I think that's 20. The next century, I think there'll be 2100. I think. What are we now?
2020. 2020. So
yeah, so
2100.
I'll reach 2100
Right,
then
there
if
you
I.
go.
And then you're like, 111. All right, I'm out.
Yeah. So I want to live through the 3 centuries: the 90s, the 2000s, and the 21.
Yeah, right.
So that'll be that. But yeah, my legacy, I want to leave the world a better place than what it was when I came in, and reach millions of people with my message, which is I've been through this, and this. And then if you've been through similar things, you can get through it and come out the other end a better person as well, which leads me on to talking about the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, before we jump into the book, I guess I'm curious because, you know, you have these people come on who I mentioned before are very high caliber, or they've got quite a big status, or that, you know, they've worked a lot to get to this position.
Yeah.
Are there any qualities or traits that you notice in each of them that they share? Anything that you think they, you know, share together as such, like whether it is gratitude or drive or motivation? Is there something that you think they all have, like this recipe for success?
That's a good question. I haven't really. There's one thing I notice is that they stay in their lane. Like Brian White is the chairman of Ray White Group, and I think he's 3rd generation. So he was raised in the family, but he sticks to real estate. He's not trying to openly become a race car driver and get paid for being that. He knows property. He's been in it for I think over 100 years now. So he sticks to property. And then Alborz Falah loves cars. He's a car man. He has 7 friggin' cars of his own, including Ferraris, Lamborghini, Aston Martin. So he loves cars, and he sold his first business, Car Advice, and now he's doing another business around cars because that's what he loves. So I think these people know what they love and what they're good at, and they stick to that. That they maybe dabble at the time. Actually, I haven't seen a lot of them dabbling. They just stick to what they're good at, and they focus on what they love, and then the money seems to come to them. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's some strategy involved, but there's that. And then also, each of them love giving back. So a lot of the guests I have on the podcast are happy to come on the podcast because they feel like they're giving back to society by sharing their message and sharing how they did things and sharing, I did this and you can do it too kind of vibe. So I really see that a lot of them want to give back in some way or another, which is, I think it's important when you take a lot and you get a lot for your success, and it's good to give back in some way.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether that's financially or with knowledge and mentorship.
Yeah,
it's good.
And I think that's something I've personally actually seen from this podcast when we have people come on. You know, you see kind of this outside facade, or you see the online presence that they put up. But it's really interesting to sit down and just learn about their struggles, because I think that can really resonate with people. Instead of going like, this person's a millionaire, multimillionaire, it's like, well, I have gone through struggles. I've had years potentially of adversity to get to this position.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes for me personally on the podcast, like that's really grounded maybe my imposter syndrome around like, will this grow, or where are we going to go with this? And then when you see that people have kind of gone through all these different journeys, and everyone's gone through struggles and failures, but it's how you frame a failure, like it's never a failure if you learn from it as such.
Yeah.
It's a growth step as such, growth
Yeah,
platform.
I don't think failure exists. I think that just events happen in our life and we learn from them, or events happen and they have a great outcome and we embrace that and we benefit from it. So either way, you're benefiting, really. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So like another thing before we jump into the book is like, we chatted a little bit about it beforehand, but like, for a lot of people out there, like they think a lot of these things that a lot of people are talking about, and I love podcasts because it's, an accessible medium, which is kind of what we're talking about there. People could get a direct connection to some of these people that have this huge, wealth and how they actually built it. But how is it, like, some of the ways that you actually got in contact with these people? Because I think it's really important, especially for some people out there, like, how would I ever, decide to make a podcast or decide to make a business, and how do I get this mentorship? And, like, how is it that you actually, got in contact with some of these people because you just decided and you're like, I'm going to make this podcast and this is how I'm going to do it. Like, can you give us some insights there?
Well, I think that when you really want something, you get it. So if you're out there and you want to start a podcast and you want high caliber guests and you want it bad enough, you make it happen. So for me, and again, attracting those opportunities to you when you know what you want and you're focused. Where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're focused solely on the podcast, I'm split a little bit with what I'm doing, but if your focus is to get those high caliber guests, then they'll come to you, or there'll be opportunities presented. So for me to get them, I started with what I knew. So start with what you know and let what you know grow. So I started with my mentor, Philip DeBella, and then I knew that Grant Cardone was coming to Australia, so I was on his Instagram following him. And one day he put up an email address saying, hey, any podcasts want to interview me, get in contact. So I was like, go for it. Of course, I had those voices in my head saying, you haven't even launched yet, you don't have an audience. What if he says no? I was like, screw it, I've got nothing to lose. He can say no, but then at least I've made contact and I've got his email saved and I can follow up later. So I emailed and I got Grant. And then I thought, damn it, why didn't I interview Elena? She was there as well. There was a bit of a lack of time. And then I just kept it going from there. I asked these guys as well after each podcast, can you introduce me to somebody else who might be interested in some free publicity or sharing the message with the world? And they're often quite willing to introduce you, whether it's through email or just give you their name, and then you follow up and they say you can name drop me if you like. So yeah, that's how I've done it.
Right. And like you gave us a lot of wisdom there, or advice, tips, I guess, to get these people. Yeah. So for people out there who are just starting out, I guess, like you mentioned that with Grant Cardone, there was the opportunity that popped up in a story. Do you have any other like specific strategies or tips to get in touch with these people?
There's heaps of different ways. So you can get on LinkedIn and you can find them specifically and contact them. I recommend contacting them directly. A lot of these people have access to their own Instagram accounts. It's not till you get like really high level that Tony Robbins doesn't bother with his own IG. I know that he has that managed, but you can always contact them through their own social media channels. I have contacted Tony's team through Instagram, and then they sent me his email, and then I emailed the stats to his team, and there was a no from them at this point in time. That's fine. Also, not getting emotional when people tell you no. Just next. Have a list of people so big that if one person tells you no, it doesn't matter. You go to the next. And that's what I've been doing. So LinkedIn, all the social media accounts. Also, if you can't get them directly, then find people who work for them. So you can always search that on LinkedIn or on Google, like Tony Robbins PA or Russell Brunson PA. Or for Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels, I messaged the ClickFunnels group on Facebook and said, anyone got a contact? Some people thought it was funny and they put some funny gifts and stuff in there. But just do whatever you can to just get creative with how you get in contact with people and get noticed. Yeah.
Cool.
Love it. So tell us about this book.
Yeah.
I think I've lived a relatively interesting life. I've been through a heap of different experiences. Like I grew up with my parents splitting when I was younger, and then my mum moving us around a lot, changed schools 11 times. Moved up and down the Queensland coast, Bundaberg, Sunshine Coast. So there's that, and then there's my sporting background, and then there's some. I wouldn't call them troubled times, but finding myself in my in my mid-teens to early 20s, lots of heavy drinking, passing out, getting in trouble with the police for speeding and certain things. Losing my license and just going through life. I believe that I've been through a lot as a young woman. I'm only 30, that I can share with other people, especially women who can read my book and then realize that you can go through all of this stuff and you don't have to be a victim of your circumstances. So again, like going back to an event that happens in your life is just an event. And, this whole coronavirus with people dying, a lot of people are labeling it horrible and sad and terrible and restrictive. That's their own perception, focused on the negatives. It's just an event. It's just something that's happening, and we choose how to react to that. So same with me and my life. I think it's cool. Like I love my life and how it's panned out, and I'd love to share those experiences and all the little lessons that I've learned along the way that I believe so many people can benefit from. I'm being selfish, not sharing. Mm-hmm. So I've chosen to write a book about it. I've started, and I was really inspired by Molly Bloom to write it.
Nice. I really love that attitude because, like this whole imposter syndrome kind of thing comes into that as well. And, Dan and I have discussed like starting to work on a book as well. And, we had that initial, in the beginning, it's like, oh, who are we to write a book or whatever? But that's like not even a part of your mindset. And I really appreciate that because it's just like, no, it's not like who are you to write a book? It's that everyone has had a unique experience. And even if you affect one person, like that's huge, Whenever we put out a piece of content and even one person gets back to us and it's like, oh my God, this episode changed my life. It's like, it's all worth it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it doesn't even matter if nobody reads it, even if you just do it as a personal reflection tool kind of thing. So it's like, I don't know, again, just for people out there and also myself and Dan, it's like we have this, we're very hard on ourselves sometimes, but it's like, no, you just got to push that to the side and do what you want to do because you want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think too, a lot of that comes from an infatuation with people who you perceive as better than you or above you. And I think what people really need to realize is that those people you infatuate with and you put on a pedestal started where you are right now, if not below where you are right now. So as long as you can realize that everybody started naked, crying, coming out of their mother, like that's where everybody started, and that we've just all been through different experiences through life and all different incredible paths. None of these paths are better than the other. It's just, So, I'm with you there. I think it is hard sometimes. I think that imposter syndrome will often come in for various people for various reasons. And as we're pushed outside our comfort zone, if I do a press tour or when I do a press tour around the world for my book, I'm sure there'll be moments where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening, or I'm about to speak in front of thousands of people and I'll feel nervous, but that's just because I'm pushing my comfort zone. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So,
And that's a natural reaction to feel that way, And that's, like you said, just recognizing that I'm feeling this way because it's a reaction to potentially like my anxieties, what I'm worried could happen. But the reality is, like you said, it's just being in the moment and reacting the way that you want to. So if it's like a press release, like you said, you've written a book that you're proud of. So it's understandable that you're nervous, but you're doing this for another reason. So maybe that's the motivator that will help you get on the stage.
Pull through, definitely. And I'm sure you guys know too, when people message you and they say, thank you so much for this episode, or this changed my life, or keep going, I'm loving your work. It really makes you go, it's cool. And if you can really relish in those moments when people tell you, keep going, or that's great. And then when you get the haters, you just have a laugh.
Yeah, you can literally laugh at it because it's like they just don't understand. They're not ready to take it in yet,
Yeah, it's a really cool feeling when you help someone else.
Yeah, and I really love that idea that you mentioned of having a journal with, people you've interacted with as well, because Eamon and I have had experiences where, imposter syndrome will creep in, or we'll be a bit hard on ourselves about something. But if we had a physical journal where we could see the guests that we've interacted with, like that would be a really grounding process, I think. So that's actually quite a cool thing just for anyone, not just for a podcast, but just, even like your loved ones in your family or people you really appreciate, mentors, like whoever it is.
Anything that makes you feel good when you look at it.
Yeah.
And I think, it's great that we have mobile phones that we can just open and look through photos at any time.
It's different.
But it's different.
Yeah, it is.
My partner and I were at a retreat a few weekends ago, and they had diaries there from the 90s of people, like it's a couples retreat, people who've written their experiences in there, or they've been proposed to, and their emotions. It was really just the smell and the feel. You're inviting more senses when you can do that. Whereas the phone is just it's not as many senses. You don't have the smell in there, and the smell is one of the earliest primal senses or something like that. It takes us back. So
different synapses fire in your brain when you actually write as well.
That's
exactly.
So something I want to dive into a little bit is it seems that like since the beginning, your focus has always been, high. Like you've always had high aspirations. And it's interesting, we find some people like they have aspirations, but they're not really focused right in that, like they're doing something really passionately, but it's not really driving towards anything in particular. That aside, but it's like, when you start your podcast, it's like millionaires and billionaires, like that's what you're going after. And the way you talk about this book, it's like, yep, after that, I'm going to be speaking at conferences around the world. Like I love that mindset, but do you have an idea of maybe where that started or how people can kind of get themselves into that mindset?
Yeah, I think it's important for people to truly be pursuing something that's valuable to them, that's important to them. So I think a lot of the time people are pursuing something that's not in their true highest values. So I think it's really important that people know what they actually value. So not what your mum wants you to do or not what your dad wants you to do. And I think a lot of people are shadowed by what their parents want them to do rather than what they truly desire. Or maybe it's something they heard on social media that really struck them that they think that they should do, but it's actually not true to them. So when you're doing what's true to you, it comes easily. You don't have to motivate yourself to do it. There is an element of like habits that come in that you may want to change, and that's a whole nother story, like talking about how the brain works with habits. But for me, I think it came from, my dad left when I was quite young, and I still saw him on and off. But I think that really made me independent from a young age, and it really allowed me to become a little bit more, like take on board a bit more of that masculine energy from a really young age. So I became super independent, high achiever in sport. I think I had a natural ability with sport. Like I just loved being outdoors and doing that kind of thing. I didn't really fit in with the girls who wanted to gossip and just chat and play hand clapping games and stuff.
You're like, no, I'm going to be a millionaire, not these hand clapping games.
and also like I was blessed that I was put in front of like situations where I was on the Gold Coast at one point with my dad and my stepmom, and I met some multimillionaires who had the yacht and the nice cars and the nice house, and I met these people and spoke to them, and they were just like normal people. And I thought to myself, well, if they can have this life, then why can't I? I want, like if I have a choice of that car or that car, I want the fancy car. I love the sportiness to them and the engineering that goes behind them. So I think that perhaps the upbringing that I had contributes to that. My sister was super intelligent at school, like definitely gifted when it comes to academics. We both did really well at school, but she was OP1, I was OP4. So, I was not as good, but
still impressive though.
It came naturally to her. Like she was just like a little genius when she was younger. So I think that there was only two of us, so it was like I had a competitor. And I remember having this competitive spirit as a kid, competing for my mum's attention, competing at school, wanting to be as good, if not better than the boys. So I think that it stems from my early childhood for sure.
That's interesting. And see, because we interviewed Jacinta, your partner, last week, has that competitive nature crept into your relationship to drive both of you forward?
Definitely, yeah. Like I think I don't feel like I need to compete with her because she has different values to me. She values health, number one. I'm not sure what the other values are right now. We've probably shifted a little bit since we last assessed that. And my highest value is business, finance, and mindset. So we don't compete with each other directly on that, but when we're both doing a physical activity, sometimes it gets competitive. Like I find myself getting competitive and frustrated when I can't do something that she can do because she's physically stronger than me. So I definitely feel it. Like I'm like, oh, she's better than me at that. But then I just remind myself it's not my value. It's okay. I'm still working out, keeping my body healthy. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's my partner. Like just chill out.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely in a lot of things that I do, I want to be the best.
Yeah.
I want to be the star for sure.
But that's also like a really high level of awareness, though, to recognize that you both do have different values and interests. And, you mentioned that you weren't necessarily competitive on that level because you're almost in your own separate lanes. Like you're both working together, you both want to achieve something. But I guess that's a really important thing then for maybe people out there who are in a relationship, because that competitive nature of it is like all encompassing and you're competitive over everything. That could potentially be detrimental.
I think so too, yeah.
But it sounds like you do, both recognize each other's strengths and values, and that's
I did date a guy who previously who had a high value in business and finance, and we definitely butted heads. Like we'd be out networking and I'd be trying to get a phone number, he'd be trying, and then he'd be like, oh yeah, what's your phone number too? Put it on my phone. It was awkward. It was so awkward.
Yeah.
So it just, I think it's important to have a partner who complements you, has similar but not the same values. And yeah, I think that's all I can say on that, really.
Yes.
We complement each other well.
Yeah. And so just on that, like any other kind of keys, like been watching your Instagram stories and there's some awesome value that you put out there, but any other keys to maybe a healthy and blossoming relationship, for lack of a better word?
A relationship? I think, just definitely know each other's values, love languages, and personality type. So there's free stuff online you can do for love languages. Actually, go to Dr. Demartini's website for values, go to the love languages website. There's only one guy who has a book called Love Languages. And then I think it's called 16 Personalities website to work out your personality type. And then combine those against each other and work out how you can work together. When I met Jacinta, within the first 2 weeks of meeting her, because we started our relationship pretty much when we met, I was like, right, here you go, do this.
Definitely the business and mindset.
I'm not screwing around, man. One life. So I've been through 2 serious relationships prior, and I was really enjoying being single. And then I was like, wow, I love this woman. And I was, I've dated men, so dating a woman, I was like, okay, if I'm going to go all in on this, I want to make sure it's the right person. It's not just an infatuation. So I was like, okay, we needed to know where we stand with each other. And that was a great way of working out how to communicate with each other. She's probably like externally, physically quite strong, but inside she's definitely more of a softer personality than me. And I'm probably externally a bit more softer looking, but internally I'm probably definitely more fierce than her.
Yeah, right.
So like learning how to communicate with her in a more gentle way was really important, because she's a softer personality.
Yeah.
If I'm as direct as I like to be with myself, with her, it doesn't come across well. So yeah, just knowing yourself and knowing your partner is really important for a relationship.
Oh, and a no bullshit attitude. It sounds like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're not happy, assess whether or not it's better for you to stay, if there's more benefits for you to stay in that relationship, or if it's better for you to leave. How many years have you invested in building, or what have you built together? Have you built anything together? If not, and you've been together 3 years and you're constantly tearing each other down, it's probably not the right relationship. But if you're
breaking up with you, Dan,
if you're building, then it's good.
Yeah. Okay.
So you have huge goals, and you're obviously achieving a lot on the day-to-day. Is there any particular habits that you can point to say that's something that really helps you on your day-to-day continue to have a consistent kind of flow of this stuff?
I think keep moving forward. So try not to physically and mentally keep moving forward. So try not to sit still physically for too long, and mentally try not to dwell on things for too long. I really love dreaming, getting in my head, and I can stand in a shower for 45 minutes and it seemed like 10 minutes. So I think it's important to physically be moving fast forward. Also sometimes stop and regroup and plan. Jacinta and I are doing that this weekend. But then once you've done your plan, go forth and charge at it, and then have times and dates where you plan your finances and review things, and then charge forward. So charge forward, rest, charge forward, rest. But if you're kind of lost and you don't have a plan, then I think that's when you don't make progress. I think it's really important to plan. And also I love having a nice morning routine. So I like to start the morning slow, have a cup of tea, meditate, do a bit of exercise. I really like in the morning having some time for me, because if I start my work or I get on social media, then my brain starts filling up with things to do. And then I find it really hard to have me time when I know my to-do list. But if I start the morning when my brain is quiet, because that's how my brain is in the morning, and I go and have some time for me first, and I feel good that I've given myself some love, and then I'm okay to give to other people in my business after that.
Massive.
Yeah. Well,
love that.
Covered off on so much here. There's been non-stop value, which is awesome. Just kind of one last thing. We love actionable content. So perhaps anyone that's seen this episode and is interested in any of the things that you're doing, if there's kind of one piece of advice that you would shake them and yell at them, what would that potential advice be?
Fail forward, for sure. And I know that that's cliche and a lot of people say that, but I calculated the other day, I've had 50 different jobs. So
whoa,
50.
Probably more different jobs. So if you're not happy in a job, quit and go find another one. We live in the 21st century with the internet. You can put yourself on Upwork. You can go and literally door knock 100 different job places in a week. You're going to find another job if you're not happy. So if you're not happy, quit your job, find another one. Like, just keep moving until you, like, for me, all the jobs were good for teaching me what I didn't like and what I didn't need in my life. So yeah, just fail forward. I've started 2 or 3 different businesses and started and failed. They weren't for me, so I just kept moving forward.
Yep.
And now I found what I'm truly here to be doing, and it feels really good. Like, it's not forced, and the money's starting to come in. It's really interesting what happens when you give yourself permission to do what you're here to do, rather than what you think you should be doing.
Awesome. Well, perfect. I think that's a really good space to stop there. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
Alyse.
so much for having me.
Appreciate
Great.
it.
Thank